Welcome to the Wellness Lab Digest, where we help you to absorb powerful, life-changing insights from top wellness experts with our daily, bite-sized wellness podcast summaries. Each episode is packed with distilled, powerful takeaways to boost your health and well-being. To support this podcast, please scroll down on whatever app you're listening on. Ratings and reviews are helpful. Even better, just send the show to a friend. Or check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page, or simply click the Support the Show link.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into ADHD and focus.
Ooh, focus.
Yeah, whether you're like getting ready for that big meeting at work, or maybe you're just trying to like understand ADHD a little bit better.
Yeah.
Or even if you're just curious about like the science behind focus itself, this is the episode for you.
Absolutely.
We've got two awesome sources that we're going to be looking at today.
Oh, cool.
We've got a YouTube lecture by Andrew Huberman.
Love him.
He's great.
Yeah.
And we're also going to be pulling from a really insightful article from ADDitude magazine.
Nice.
You ready to uncover some like surprising connections between dopamine and even blinking?
Blinking.
Yeah, blinking.
Oh.
And how we perceive time.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
All right, let's do it.
Let's go.
Okay, so first off, let's just like define ADHD.
Yeah, so it's way more than just being like distractible.
Right.
There are a lot of misconceptions out there.
Yeah.
ADHD actually involves difficulty with attention and focus and concentration.
Okay.
And even impulse control.
Gotcha. So like those are actually different things.
Yeah. So for today,
Yeah.
we're going to be considering attention, focus, and concentration all the same thing.
Okay.
Just that laser focus on something specific.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then impulse control is separate.
Right. So like being able to like put on those blinders and
Yes.
resist those like urges or distractions that pop up.
You got it.
Okay.
And another thing that's often overlooked is how ADHD can impact working memory,
Oh, interesting.
which is the ability to hold and use information like immediately.
Right. Like if someone tells you their phone number.
Exactly. Remembering a phone number or a list of instructions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Huberman, in his lecture, does a really good job of like breaking this down even further.
Yeah.
And he kind of brings up these examples that kind of shatter a lot of common misconceptions about ADHD.
Oh, like what?
So you know how people say that those with ADHD just like can't focus?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it turns out they can hyperfocus.
Oh, interesting.
Like they can get totally absorbed in things like maybe they're playing video games or they're drawing.
Right.
They're super into it.
Yeah.
It's just that their focus isn't always directed where they need it to be.
So it's not a lack of focus. It's more like a difficulty in directing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And get this, time perception is different for people with ADHD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they might be constantly battling the clock.
Interesting.
But then as soon as a deadline pops up,
Yeah.
they can suddenly like kick into gear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Huberman even talked about how like spatial organization can even be a struggle.
Okay.
And this can lead to what he calls the pile system.
The pile system.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
So, we talked about the symptoms and the challenges.
Yeah.
But what's actually going on in the brain?
Well, it seems like dopamine is the key player here.
Right, dopamine, the like reward chemical.
It's more than just reward.
Right.
It's a neuromodulator, which means it actually changes how your brain operates.
Interesting.
It's basically the fuel for focus, for motivation, and even for wanting things.
Dopamine, it does it all.
Pretty much.
I love the analogy that Huberman used in his lecture.
What was that?
He compared the brain to like a band,
Okay.
and dopamine's the conductor.
Okay.
But in ADHD, the conductor's a little offbeat.
Mm-hmm. So things are a little out of sync.
Exactly. So like brain circuits are firing together when they should be alternating.
That makes sense.
And this helps explain why like stimulants can actually have a calming effect on people with ADHD
Oh.
because they boost dopamine levels.
Right.
And that kind of helps restore that conductor's rhythm.
Okay, so it's like getting the band back in tune.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
And this also goes back to this low dopamine hypothesis.
Yeah.
And this is why some people with ADHD might self-medicate with things like sugar or caffeine
Oh, yeah, to get that dopamine boost.
or even recreational drugs.
Yeah. Right, they're just chasing that feeling of normalcy.
Exactly. So this brings us to an interesting question.
Okay.
What about diet? Can what you eat actually impact ADHD?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, so there's definitely a connection there.
Right.
Huberman highlighted a 2011 study in The Lancet,
Oh, wow.
and it looked at the effects of an elimination diet.
An elimination diet.
Yeah.
So taking things out
Yeah.
to see what happens.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And it was on kids with ADHD.
Okay.
And the results were pretty dramatic.
Wow.
Speaking of sugar's impact, I love this story that Huberman told about giving kids espresso bean chocolate.
Oh, no.
And just seeing them go into this, like, dopamine-fueled frenzy.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So too much dopamine can actually have the opposite effect.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
So, while the Lancet study was pretty controversial,
Okay.
one thing was pretty clear.
What's up?
Reducing simple sugars can be a game changer for managing ADHD symptoms. It makes you think twice about reaching for that sugary snack, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
So we've talked about medication and diet,
Mm-hmm.
but what about other options?
Like what?
Like, are there things that we can do beyond, like, popping pills or cutting out sugar?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. There are actually quite a few things.
Ooh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is where Huberman's lecture gets really exciting.
Oh, yeah.
He delves into this fascinating link between blinking,
Blinking.
yes, blinking,
And,
and visual focus
Uh-huh.
and attention.
Wow, all connected.
All intertwined. So it turns out we all have these things called attentional blinks.
Attentional blinks.
Yeah.
What is that?
So think of it this way. Have you ever been so focused on finding something, like
Yeah.
your keys,
Uh-huh.
that you completely miss them, even though they're right in front of you?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
That's an attentional blink.
Oh, okay.
Your focus narrows so intensely on one thing that you miss other things around you.
Okay, so people with ADHD, they experience more of these attentional blinks.
Exactly, and that makes it even harder for them to shift focus and absorb information effectively.
Right.
But here's the really cool part. Research has shown that there are techniques you can use to reduce these attentional blinks.
Oh, okay, tell me.
Okay, so one technique is called open monitoring.
Open monitoring.
Yeah, so instead of that laser-like focus,
Right.
you consciously widen your gaze, taking in the whole visual scene.
So, like, instead of having those, like, blinders on, you're kind of, like, taking them off.
Exactly, you're expanding your field of awareness.
I like that.
It's like switching from a telephoto lens to a wide-angle lens.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and another technique that might surprise you is interoception.
Interoception, what's that?
It involves tuning into your internal sensations, like your breath.
Okay.
So Huberman described a study where just 17 minutes of this meditation-like exercise,
17 minutes.
17 minutes, had a lasting impact on focus and significantly reduced attentional blinks.
Wow, okay, so, like, 17 minutes of just, like, focusing on your breath can help with focus.
It can, and this brings us back to dopamine.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about dopamine and its role in focus?
Yeah.
Well, dopamine also affects our perception of time.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, so there's evidence that suggests when our dopamine levels are higher, time seems to fly by.
So that's why time flies when you're having fun,
Exactly.
because your dopamine levels are up.
It's all connected.
Wow, that's so cool.
And speaking of connections, there was another study that showed that physical activity before visual focus training actually helped kids with ADHD improve their attention.
Interesting. So, like, getting your body moving can help calm your mind?
It seems that way.
Okay.
Even Huberman mentioned how he uses foot tapping during surgery to steady his hand.
Oh, wow, that's a good tip.
It's like a little trick to channel that excess energy
Yeah, okay.
and enhance his focus.
Awesome.
So we've talked about techniques. Now let's explore some additional tools to boost focus.
Okay, so, like, what kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, one area to consider is supplements.
Okay, supplements, like what?
So omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA,
Okay.
can be beneficial for both mood and attention.
Right. Omega-3s, good for brain health.
Yeah, and then there's phosphatidylserine.
Phosphatidylserine.
Yeah, it's a mouthful,
It is.
but it has shown promise in reducing ADHD symptoms, especially when combined with omega-3s.
Okay, and how much phosphatidylserine should you take?
About 200 milligrams a day seems to be a good amount.
Got it. 200 milligrams.
Yep, and then we have alpha GPC.
Okay. Alpha GPC, what's that?
It's a supplement that increases a brain chemical called acetylcholine,
The acetylcholine.
which is really important for focus.
Okay, I've heard of that, but remind me what it does again.
It's like a messenger in your brain
Okay.
that helps signals travel between nerve cells.
Okay.
Crucial for learning, memory,
Uh-huh.
and of course, focus.
Focus, right.
Yeah.
So acetylcholine, got it. And have you heard about the race tams? Oh, yeah, the race tams. I've heard those are good for, like, brain power, right?
You're right, they're gaining popularity for their cognitive enhancing effects.
Okay.
They seem to work by boosting certain neurotransmitters in the brain.
Okay.
But a word of caution, L-tyrosine,
Okay.
which is another supplement sometimes used for focus, can have strong effects and some potential downsides.
Oh, okay.
So it's best to talk to your doctor before experimenting with that one.
Got it. L-tyrosine, proceed with caution,
Exactly.
and a doctor's guidance.
Yes. Always good to consult with a healthcare professional.
So are there any other cutting-edge treatments on the horizon for ADHD or focus issues?
There are some fascinating developments in brain stimulation.
Brain stimulation.
Yes. One technology being explored is transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS.
TMS, I've heard of that. It's what is that, like magnets or something?
Yeah, it uses magnetic pulses to stimulate specific areas of the brain.
Wow, so it's like giving your brain a little zap?
In a way, yes, and it's showing some promise for improving focus and reducing ADHD symptoms.
Okay.
Remember, we're still in the early stages of understanding its long-term effects and effectiveness.
Right, so more research needs to be done.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
What does all this mean for those of us who don't have ADHD?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
This isn't just about ADHD.
Okay.
With the things we've talked about, dopamine, blinking, visual focus,
Yeah.
these are all fundamental to how our brains work.
Okay.
We all experience attentional blinks. We all struggle with focus at times.
Yeah, for sure.
And we can all benefit from understanding these mechanisms.
So even if I don't have ADHD, I can still use these techniques to sharpen my focus.
Absolutely. Remember that 17-minute interoception exercise we talked about?
Yeah.
That's something anyone can try.
Okay.
It's simple, yet powerful for calming the mind and boosting focus.
I like
And don't forget about open monitoring.
Right, widening your gaze.
Exactly, to reduce those attentional blinks.
Okay, widen my gaze, pay attention to my breath. Any other pro tips?
Remember that study where physical activity before focus training helped kids with ADHD?
Yeah.
That applies to everyone.
Oh, cool.
If you're about to tackle a mentally demanding task,
Okay,
try doing a few minutes of exercise beforehand.
that makes sense.
You might be surprised how much it helps prime your brain for focus.
Awesome. So get that heart rate up, you get the blood flowing,
Exactly.
and then you'll be able to focus better.
And here's a crucial takeaway.
Okay.
Be mindful of how technology impacts your attention.
Oh, yeah, my phone.
Huberman really emphasizes how smartphones, with their constant notifications and endless scrolling, can wear down our attention spans.
It's true. It's like a black hole for attention sometimes.
It is. It's something we all need to be aware of. It's
Mhm.
not about demonizing technology,
Right.
but about using it consciously and setting boundaries to protect our focus.
Okay, so step away from the smartphone, get some exercise, practice open monitoring, and try that 17-minute interoception exercise.
You got it.
Got it.
You've got the key takeaways.
I feel like I'm taking notes here.
And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
There's so much more to learn about ADHD, focus, and the incredible power of our brains.
Oh, for sure.
But for now,
Yeah.
you've got some great tools to start experimenting with.
This has been amazing. I'm feeling inspired to level up my focus game.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Empowering you with knowledge and practical tools to optimize your brain and live a more focused and fulfilling life.
Okay, so wow.
Yeah,
We've covered a ton of ground here.
we have.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, what really stood out is how much emphasis there is now on understanding the underlying mechanics of attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just about willpower or trying harder.
Yeah.
It's about, recognizing the role of dopamine and blinking visual focus, all these factors that kind of work together to shape our attention.
It's like we're getting this behind the scenes look
Yeah.
at how our brain's focus system actually works.
We've been handed the user manual for our brains.
Exactly. And with that understanding, we can actually start using strategies that target those specific mechanisms.
Yeah.
So whether it's medication or supplements, behavioral techniques, it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
We're moving towards a more personalized approach to enhancing focus.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like finding what works best for you.
Absolutely. And the best part is that the research is always evolving,
Right.
giving us even more tools and insights to work with.
So excited.
It's a really exciting time to be exploring the science of focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling super pumped to put all this knowledge into action.
Me too.
I bet our listeners are too.
Yeah, I encourage everyone listening to try out the techniques that we talked about today. Experiment, try open monitoring, practice interoception, and pay attention to how technology affects your focus.
Right. Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
You really might.
Yeah,
So it's really all about like those small changes, right?
absolutely. Small changes can make a big difference over time.
Consistency is key.
It is.
Yeah.
Finding what works for you and sticking with it.
Totally.
It's all about taking those small steps,
Mhm.
consistently to cultivate a more focused and fulfilling life.
Well said. Well, this has been fantastic. I've learned so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into ADHD and focus.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you've gained some valuable knowledge
Yeah,
and some actionable tips to enhance your own focus.
absolutely.
This is just the beginning.
It is.
There's so much more to explore.
Keep learning.
So be sure to check out the show notes
Yes.
for links to the research that we discussed and other resources that might be helpful.
To help you on your journey to both focus.
Until next time, stay curious and keep those minds sharp.
See you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Lab Digest. If you receive value from the podcast, I have 3 asks of you. 1, share the show on social media with your friends and tag the show at the Wellness Lab Digest on Instagram. Number 2, please leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening on. And last but not least, please let me know what topics you would like us to cover in the future. You can contact me at empoweringmen.org/contact. And right now we have a free ebook to get you started on your wellness journey as well. That's empoweringmen.org/contact. To support this podcast, check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page or simply click the Support the Show link.